Chapter 12, Karate Embedded Expression. So in this chapter, we are going to see what is embedded expression and how to utilize them. So let me start this chapter. Karate has a very powerful or useful payload templating approach. Variables can be referred to within a JSON as well. So with the help of this embedded expression, we can replace the value, we can replace the variables with the values as well. And here is an example. This is a JSON. So whenever you want to replace any username that is present inside the JSON, then we can replace it. You can replace it with the variable, with the value, and also you can get it from the JSON as well. So let's go and understand with an examples. So this is a Karate session project, and this session project we have created in the previous sessions. We have the feature files as well as we have a runner. With the help of the runner, we are executing the feature files. So let's do one thing. Let's create a one feature file. Right click and new. We have a Karate feature file as an option. Click on this, and here we can provide the name of the feature file, which is this expression, and the extension is a dot feature. So we can give the name as a, we can say we are going to test the expressions. Here is the name of the scenario, which is this expressions. Now we are going to create a JSON. So let's use a def as a keyword, and then it is going to have the cust information. So let's have it this time. The name is a sing. Now we have created our JSON. So let's do one thing. Let's go and print this. So whenever we want to print a statement, then we are going to use a given. We can have a print, and let's have this cust information as well. Now whenever you want to invoke this particular feature file, we need to commit here inside this runner and change the name of this particular feature file. Right now we want to run expressions dot feature file. So let's do one thing. Right click, say run, and it is going to invoke this particular feature file, and then it is going to print the customer information as well, which is this cust info. So let's scroll it down. We can see we able to get this particular JSON where we have a first name in the pal and the last name is equal to sing as well. But when we see this JSON, whenever we are talking about the first name, these values are hard coded, and this is not existing in a practical scenarios. We are not going to provide hard coded values. So at that point of time, we are going to parameterize these values as well. So the Karate provides another way to parameterize this, or you can say we are going to replace these values with the help of the variables as well. So we are going to do it. Let's have a variables first. Whenever we want to declare the variables, we can say def. What is the value? We are going to add it. We are going to add a name is equal to, take an example of, we are saying we are going to have it a Bob, and then we are going to have another variable which is this last name, and the value we can have it a Florus. Now we have a two variables. We are going to replace these variables, these values, with the help of these different variables which we have declared it here. So let's do one thing. Let's copy this again. We can commit here. After printing the values, we can have it again a definition. This time it is a customer information. So whenever you want to replace the values, then we have a one syntax, which is this hash, and inside these particular braces we are going to provide the name, which is this first name. First name is the variable. Then if you want to replace, or if you want to make this last name as a dynamic, again we need to do the same thing. Here we are going to use a hash, and then inside the braces we are going to provide a name, which is this a variable. So we are going to declare these variables on the top of this, but because it is not going to replace it if we are declaring at the bottom. Now let's go and print this. We are saying we are going to print, and we are going to use a cast information. Now let's go and invoke this. We are saying right click and say run, and it is going to invoke this particular scenario, and it is going to print, and it is going to replace the values. So we can see if we scroll it down, we have, this is a JSON, first JSON which we have added it. Now when we scroll it down, we able to replace the first name and the last name which we have added with the help of this hash, which is this first name and a last name as well. So in this way we can replace the values as well. But if you want to append the values, if you want to concatenate the values as well, take an example of, let's copy this. Instead of having the first name and the last name, we are only having a single field, which is this a last name. Let's get rid of this. We are saying full name as well. So this full name is going to have a different values related to first name and the last name. So whenever you want to have the concatenation of a two variables, which is the first name and the last name, then we are going to do the same thing. We are going to use a hash before the braces and then the first name, and we are going to use a concatenation operator. So this plus is a concatenation operator. So whenever you want to replace or whenever you want to have a two variable value, then we are going to use a concatenation operator, and we are going to replace it with the last name as well. So in this way we are going to concatenate the variables, which help is the first name and the last name. Now let's go and print this. We are going to say this is a print related to a customer information. Now let's go and run this. Right click and say run. This time it is going to provide the full name. It is going to concatenate the first name as well as it is going to concatenate the last name. Let's scroll it down. Right now it is having in the Pal saying this is a Bob and the Flores, and here we can see we are having the full name, which is this a Bob Flores. If you want to add a space in between the first name and the last name, then again we can use a concatenation operator. We are going to use a double quote. So in between the double quotes we are going to provide a space, and then it is going to add a space in between the first name and the last name. Then it will be displayed a Bob and the Flores with a space as well. So let's scroll it down. We can see we are having this Bob and the Flores. Sometimes it happens you don't want to replace a values as well, but you also want to append the text. Take an example of here saying we want to say hello to the Bob and the Flores, and whenever we want to add a text in between these braces, we are going to add it inside the double quotes. So this will be having this hello and then the first name and the last name, and we always need to use a concatenation operator. So right click and say run. It is going to invoke and it is going to print hello. First name is a Bob and the last name is a Flores as well. So let's scroll it down. We are having this hello Bob Flores as well. So right now we are appending or we are replacing the values, the variables of JSON object which present inside this scenario as well. So we are printing the customer information. At this point of we are only adding a string. In case if you want to add an integer and you also want to add a boolean in this JSON, then how are we going to add it? So let's have it. We are going to say a def, which is this age, and we can give the age is equal to 25, and then we are going to have another variable. This time it is going to whether it is a male or a true or false, then we are going to have it true. Now let's do one thing. Let's have this as a customer information, and we are going to add it this customer information. We are going to add another object, another field. This time it is a age as a field. So let's have this. We are saying age. So whenever we want to have it a integer, then we are not going to use a single quote, because single quote we always need to use it whenever we are using a string as well. So now let's commit here. So we are going to say hash, and inside this braces we are going to use age, and a same thing we are going to use it with the boolean value as well. So we are going to have this colon, and we are going to have this hash, and inside the hash we are going to say whether it is a male or not. Now we are going to print this, which is this cust information. Hopefully this will be replaced. Now we are going to use a print to print the values. So let's go and invoke this. Right click and say run. It is going to invoke this particular information, and it is going to replace the ages as well as the male as well. So let's commit here, which is having a age, which is this 25, as well as a boolean, which is this male is equal to true. So whenever you want to add any string, then you need to include it a single quote. If you are adding an integer or you are adding a boolean, then you don't need to add the variables, this embedded expression, inside a single quote. So till now whenever we are replacing it, we are replacing it inside the JSONs, inside the variables those are present inside the scenarios. And if you want to replace the values from the JSON files, the Karate also supports. So let's go and create it. Right click, say new, and here is the file. We are going to provide the name as a customer information dot a JSON. So we are going to add the JSON values as well. We are going to add this JSON because we also have a replace the values. Commit here and add it. Now what we are going to do is we need to have it a double quotation marks. So whenever you are declaring, whenever you are adding a JSON inside any of the file, which is this a JSON file, you need to add a field name as well as the variables inside a double quotes like we have added it. Otherwise it will not work. Now we can commit here inside this expressions.feature. So whenever you want to read any files from outside, then we are going to use a def keyword. So let's use this a def. We are saying a cust. So let's add a cust. What we are going to do is we are going to use a read is a method which is provided by the client to us to help to read the files. Now we are going to read this cust1 information. At this point of time, we are here inside this current test. We need to move a one level up. And how are we going to move a one level up? Double dot slash, and inside this we are having this data, and we are going to have the customer information dot JSON. Now we are going to print this cust which is having a information related to a customer information. So right click and say run. Scenario got successful, so let's scroll it down. So if we see it, so we can see we able to get this particular JSON. So this JSON is present inside this particular cust information.json, and it is having and it is also replacing the values as well. Till now what we guys are doing, we are using a hash to replace the values in a different strings as well. So we can also have it this particular replacement whenever we are doing any matching as well. Take an example of we are having a one full name as a variable, and what is the value we are going to say? We are going to have a value as a Flores. So this is the value which we have added. In case if you want to compare this particular Bob Flores with this first name and the last name, then that can also be done it. So we are going to say then match what is the value which we are saying we want to match it, which is this a full name, is equal to, whenever you are going to match anything between the two strings, we are going to use a double equal to provided by the client to us, and we are going to call this first name and the last name. So whenever we want to have it, we are going to use a single quote, and outside this we are going to use a hash. Outside this particular brace we are going to use a first name, which is this first name. So whenever we want to add a space in between, we are going to use the double quotes. We are going to have a concatenation operator, then we are using a last name as well. So hoping whenever we are going to invoke this scenario will be passed. So let's do one thing, let's run this, right click and say run. Our scenario is getting it failed. So when we scroll it little down, what is the reason behind it? When we have it, we can see it is a fluoro. So we need to add a Flores. Now it will be passed. So right click and rerun it to make this particular statement Bob Flores instead of having a Flora. Now it is invoking it, and we can see it is getting it passed. So in this way we can replace the values, we can replace the variables with the different values as well. So that's it in this chapter.